no, he didn't know, like, you know, the cool, like, the supper. Just randomly popping out again. It doesn't matter. Every once in a while. So I'm really gonna know that.
Good evening. Welcome to the 8th Annual WELS Middle School Honors Band Festival. I am the Director of Bands here at Winnebago Lutheran Academy. Abby Kurth is my name, and we are thrilled to be hosting you here for this 8th annual program today. We have represented behind me 80 different students from 12 of our WELS Lutheran Elementary School band programs. We'll introduce you more to them in just a little bit. Before we get started, I wanted to say a hello to those of you joining us on the live stream, especially those of you who might be from our Lutheran Elementary School programs in Minnesota. Many of those students weren't able to join us tonight due to the Choral Fest being hosted at St. Croix Lutheran Academy this weekend. Hi, Choral Fest. Have a great concert tomorrow afternoon. Our clinician today is Dr. Devin Otto. Dr. Otto is the Director of Bands at the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh. He's the low brass instructor there too. I first met Dr. Otto at a clinic down at the Midwest Clinic in Chicago. Found out he was from my neck of the woods, and since then he's been a director in bands I've performed with Tuba Christmas here in Fond du Lac and with Vento Winds up in Appleton, Wisconsin. Additionally, directors, some of your students may have had him as a clinician for WSMA Solinan Ensemble, where a lot of my students have met him too. We've been grateful to have him working with our students all day today. And without further ado, please join me in welcoming to the stage the 2024-25 WELS Middle School Honor Band and our clinician, Dr. Devin Otto.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's just been a wonderful day, such a pleasure. What a great way to spend a Saturday. All of these students we said at the beginning of the day, I have the utmost respect for them just walking in the door, because I know that they're giving up a precious Saturday, a day off, a day of, I don't know, Minecraft and whatever. I have a 10-year-old, Minecraft is a thing. And they're giving that up to come here to make music with people that they've never met before, but to engage in some camaraderie, some togetherness, some art, right? And most students their age, I think, would not make that sacrifice. And so I'm so happy, pleased, chuffed to bits, proud to be in front of these wonderful young students. That first piece, Ashlawn Echoes, is kind of a old warhorse. It's not that old, but it gets played a lot by middle school bands. Most middle school bands rehearse that piece for months in preparation for a concert, and we put it together in a total of about 40 minutes, 45 minutes of rehearsal. So that says a lot to the music, that speaks to the musicianship of these young people. The next piece on our program is by a composer named Jennifer Jolly, and it's called Last Stage to Red Rock. My understanding is that it was actually inspired after she watched a movie, a Western movie. It's not really soundtrack music, but she was inspired by watching a Western to write this music, sorry. And it's not a complicated piece in notes, and it's not a complicated piece in rhythms. But what it is a great teaching tool, and I think we've learned a lot from it today. It's an exercise in extremes. It has big dynamics, and then it has really soft dynamics, and has almost nothing in between. And maybe even more important than that, it has sound, and then it has a shocking amount of silence. And that's our challenge, is to make sure that the silences are in fact silent and that we enter them together. It's a really tougher than it looks on the page, but they've done a beautiful, beautiful job putting this piece together. So we hope you enjoy Jennifer Jolly's Last Stage to Red Rock. The next piece on our program is one of my absolute favorite pieces to conduct. I really love doing this piece. I do it with a lot of honor bands. I do this with a lot of high school honor bands. So to be able to do it with a middle school honor band, again, it says a lot about the students that are on the stage. This is a really gorgeous piece by a Japanese woman named Yukiko Nishimura. And she writes mostly for orchestra, for string instruments, but she has been transcribing some of her string pieces for band, and they turn out just beautifully. And if some of you are nerdy enough to know what I'm talking about, I know not all of you are, but some of you are nerdy enough to know what I'm talking about. There is a Japanese animation studio called Studio Ghibli that is run by Hayao Miyazaki. And it's been said that Studio Ghibli is to Japanese animation kind of like what Walt Disney is to the United States. But I gotta be really honest, I didn't grow up as a Disney kid, and I've seen some of the Studio Ghibli films, and they're better. Like, these Japanese films are amazing. The art is spectacular. The music just brings tears to your eyes, and the themes of the movies are so adult without being profane or in any way, but Miyazaki and his films deal with the real world in a way that Disney films just kind of don't. Miyazaki films a lot of times have characters who are in conflict, not because one is the good guy and one is the bad person trying to take over the world, but because they're just human beings with goals that happen to be in conflict with each other. It's a very human way of looking at animation. They're gorgeous movies, and I highly recommend you check them out. Maybe you've heard of a couple of them if you don't know what I'm talking about. The one that really put him on the map in the United States was Spirited Away. My favorite is Princess Mononoke. I cannot get enough of that movie. I'm looking over here because he knows what I'm talking about. Yeah. So good, okay. Anyway, I'm rambling, but I'm telling you all of that because almost every Studio Ghibli movie actually has the same composer, and that composer's name is Joe Hisashi. And I love Joe Hisashi's music, and the reason I connect with this piece, this Yukiko Nishimura piece so much, is because it sounds to me like soundtrack music from one of those Joe Hisashi soundtracks. I just can't get enough of this piece. I think it's beautiful, and I hope that you do too. The piece is called Ancient Flower by Yukiko Nishimura. So I think that there's going to be some introductions of some of the students, the programs, and the teachers before we play our final piece. So I'm going to just do some thank yous now so that I don't step on those toes. First off, a huge, huge thank you to Mrs. Kurth. Did she run away? Where is she? There she is, up in the corner. Yes, yes, yes. For all of her work in organizing and hosting. I don't do one of these like every week, but I've done a fair amount of honor groups like this, high school groups, middle school groups. I have quite honestly and very literally never worked with somebody who was as organized and on the ball ahead of schedule on everything possible as Mrs. Kurth. She did an absolutely spectacular job organizing this day. Thank you so much. Just as an example, I actually am doing, these, stuff comes at you in waves. I haven't had an honor band, yet this year. It's not really honor band season, and then honor band season started. I have this one today, and I'm doing another one on the other side of the state on Monday. I found out about the one that I'm doing on Monday maybe a month ago, 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks, something like that. Mrs. Kurth contacted me about doing this one last March. Is that right? Last March or April. So she's been so on the ball. It's just absolutely spectacular. Thank you. Also, thank you to all of the directors who gave their time and effort and helped teach sectionals for all of these students today and made my job a little easier. Gave me a little breathing time to sit down and just be quiet and kind of think about what comes next in rehearsal while the students continued to accomplish a lot of wonderful work under the tutelage of those teachers. So thank you to all of the directors who did sectionals today. For the next piece, you'll see why in a minute, but we owe a huge, huge debt of gratitude for not just, setting up a microphone and some speakers, but also the live stream, but also making our next piece possible at all. We owe a huge debt of gratitude to our sound person, Ethan. Thank you so much for all of your work. And along with thanking all of you for being so supportive of these students and supporting the arts in schools and music making, please help me thank these students who made today such a pleasure as the conductor. Quite selfishly, this has just been so much fun. So thank you so much to the students. So when Mrs. Kurth and I started working on putting this together, and she started asking for repertoire, like way before it was in my head that we should be thinking about repertoire and all that, I suggested a piece. It's actually the last piece that we're going to play, and I said, I don't know how you feel about this. There's a couple things in it that get a little bit outside the box, but I kind of like doing something in a setting like this for an honor band that's maybe a little different than what the students usually do at home. And there's nothing wrong with the repertoire that they do at home, and there's good reasons that they don't do this kind of repertoire all the time. But when you come to something like this, it's cool to do some music that's a little bit special, that's a little bit different, that pushes you in a different direction. And she said, yeah, I really, really like that. And as you're programming the rest of it, I hope you keep thinking that way. And boy, she probably shouldn't have said that, because I really like different music. I've often told my friends, sometimes I have friends who come up and say, we talk all the time as band directors, what's your favorite piece? What are you doing right now? What's your favorite piece? And I've just started saying, you know what my favorite piece is? My favorite piece is the most recent piece that I've heard that doesn't sound like anything I've heard before. Because I hear so much band music that even the great pillars of our wind band repertoire start to kind of sound the same. But if I hear a composer who approaches it and does something totally unique, even if I don't love the piece, if it's different, it sticks with me, and I love that. So Mrs. Kurth probably didn't know that about me, and she opened that door, and now here we are doing rock music by Alex Shapiro. Alex Shapiro is another female composer. She lives in the Pacific Northwest. She lives on an island in the San Juan Islands. I'm from Washington, so that means something to me and probably not to you. But basically, she lives up on a bluff that overlooks the ocean. And her composing studio that she writes music in, she has an ocean view. And her music is very connected to nature, sometimes has environmentalism kind of underpinnings. But she's also maybe the leading composer in the United States right now for music for band and pre-recorded sound. So we're actually going to play along with a soundtrack. This is absolutely nuts to do on a single day. We shouldn't be doing this. This was, in a lot of ways, this was a really bad idea. And yet somehow these amazing students have done it. We've run through it a couple times and like, oh my gosh, they're actually doing it. I was so scared that this wasn't gonna work. But thanks so much to Ethan and the tech stuff just being so smooth, which could have been a nightmare, and he's knocking it out of the park. And thanks to these students being willing to do something a little different, we're doing it. I told the students earlier, sorry, I know I talk a lot, but I told the students earlier, if you were asked to do like the all-state band for the whole state of Wisconsin at our music education conference in October, as a director, and I said, I think we should do a piece with pre-recorded sound, they would say, no, that's a terrible idea, don't do that. And yet here we are doing it. We can, it's amazing to me. I'm so proud of these kids and what they're doing with this piece. Now, to prepare you, it doesn't sound like any of the other music, but that's okay. Rock music doesn't mean like rock and roll music, it means literally music made with rocks. And it's a piece that's about geology, it's a piece that's about climate change in a way, it's a piece that's about like calving glaciers and things happening all over the world and the very gradual change of the earth as erosion chips away rocks, and she's put a whole bunch of thought into about 4 minutes of music. This work was commissioned by a middle school band in the Sun Prairie area, Patrick Marsh Middle School, and their fabulous director, Chris Gleason, who's no longer their director. He's now working at the state level to try to improve music education for everybody around the state. He's a wonderful, wonderful man. And she partnered with them, and they went out into nature and recorded sounds of rocks and things that they could find, just found sounds, and they sent her all of these MP3 files, and she turned them into this soundtrack that we're gonna play along with. When I say soundtrack, it's not like music and, you know, you can't snap along with it. It's a bunch of sounds of like rocks falling, rocks being scraped against other rocks. Okay? So I can't promise, I'm gonna be real honest, I can't promise that you're gonna love this piece. But it's so cool that they're able to do it at all. This shouldn't be possible, number one, and yet we're doing it. And number two, I guarantee you, when you leave, even if you didn't like it, you're gonna remember it. This is the piece you're gonna remember. And so I'm gonna put my earbuds in, because it's almost like Hollywood. I have to have a click track to conduct with, or otherwise we can't stay with the pre-recorded sound. I'm gonna put my click track in, and then Ethan's gonna start us off, and we hope you enjoy. I hope you enjoy it. Some of you won't, but I swear it's cool. Alex Shapiro's rock music. I am absolutely going to pass the mic off in just a second, but I just turned around and told the ensemble, that was so cool. The fact, again, you may not like that kind of music. I get it, most people don't. But the fact that they could even do that, for the rest of my career, I'm going to be asking honor bands if we can do music with pre-recorded sound, and they're going to say, no, that's impossible, you're crazy. And I'm going to say, let me tell you about this absolutely awesome Lutheran school, middle school honor band that I did a couple of years ago. That was spectacular. Give it up.
At this time, we're going to collect a free will offering that's just going to help offset some of the costs of running this event today. At this time, I would also ask all the band directors to please come forward. While they're coming up, there's a few thank yous that didn't make it into the program, and I want to address those right now. First of all, we want to thank Hyde Music, who sponsored this concert today. If you've got someone up on stage here today who may be looking at upgrading to a step-up instrument, they've left some instrument on the table on your left as you exit the building. Feel free to take any of that information on your way out today. I'd like to give a special thank you to my co-directors here at WLA Bands, Mr. John Hall, Michelle Stewart, and Chloe Grunwald. They helped me with so many of these little tasks of bringing the program together again, so thank you to the WLA Bands staff. We got a special thank you for the directors over at Fondy High. In a pinch, they were able to lend us about 40 chairs to seat this enormous band. So thank you to Chris Barnes and Jake Opperman, our directors over at Fondy High. Thanks also to Georgia Stockton and Mark Stockton and the whole WLA board game crew. They provided some great entertainment for us. And then finally, he is in the program, but I wanted to give another shout out to Mr. Ethan Mallow. When I asked him about 3 months ago to do the live streaming for us, he did not know that he would also become a part of the band in the last song, as you heard. Nor did he know that he'd be leading game time during this afternoon for our students. So thank you very much, Ethan, for everything you've done today. At this time, we're going to introduce to you all of the students up here and their corresponding directors. Do we want to stay on the sides, or let's come on up here to the front? Sure. Front and center, everybody. Students, when I introduce your director's name, please also stand. And from the audience, could we have all the parents, guardians, caregivers, please also stand when your students are recognized. Starting with Fox Valley Lutheran Schools and their director, Elizabeth Wagner. Illinois Lutheran Schools and their directors, Jonathan Whitty and Pastor Frank Italiano. Kettle Moraine Lutheran Schools Band Program and their directors, Nate Amundsen, Angela Hohenstein, and Terry Troyden. Lakeside Elementary Bands and their directors, Josh Hankey, Brett Dewey, and Faye Monson. Luther Junior Knights Band and their directors, Emily Schmidt and Greg Bowers. Manitowoc Lutheran Junior Lancer Band and their directors, Meredith Milbrath and Karis Scharf. Northland Lutheran Grade School Band Program and their directors, Jennifer Heisinger and Christy Perry. Shoreland Lutheran Grade School Band and their director, Keith Wardell. St. John's Lannon and their director, Karen Lippert. St. Matthew's Oconomowoc and their director, Justin Bessert. WLA Schools bands and their directors, John Hall, Michelle Stewart, Chloe Gernwald, and me. Wisconsin Lutheran High School Junior Viking Band Program and their directors, Danny Hoffenstein and Alicia Mengel. And finally, their directors weren't able to join us today, so on their behalf, I'd like to invite you to next year's 9th Annual WELS Middle School Honors Band Festival, which will be hosted by Manitowoc Lutheran High School on November 22nd. Mark your calendars and start practicing, everybody. Thank you again for coming to this concert tonight, and we hope you enjoyed the last song here on our program.
Thank you again to all of the directors, all of the parents. It's just been such a joy, so much fun for me. The last piece is also a little bit outside the box, but don't worry, you're already through the weird one. This one's not as weird as the last one. Dan Buckvich, I love to program this piece with honor bands and things like this whenever I can, because Dan Buckvich was one of my mentors. When I started my undergraduate at the University of Idaho in 1997, Daniel Buckvich was my freshman theory and ear training teacher. And he's still there teaching percussion and theory and ear training, and he's a very outside-the-box thinker, and I'll just leave it at that. He's really, every composer has to be creative, but his creative spirit knows no bounds. He just thinks about the entire world in a different way. And in this piece, he wrote it for middle-level band, but thought, what is it that most middle-level bands are missing? What is it that middle-level kids want to do that we're not giving them the opportunity to do? And his answer was, express themselves creatively. So the first movement of this piece, of these three phrases from Yugoslav folk songs, is pretty straight ahead. The second movement starts to add in a little bit of guided and very carefully curated improvisation by some of the players. They're going to make up some of the music on their own. Just a little bit. And then in the third movement, you'll see a bunch of people start to stand up. That's because we're just opening the floor and allowing volunteers. And we have this repetitive kind of a vamp, we call it sometimes. It's just going to go over and over and over, but any student who wants to is going to be allowed to stand up and to improvise. Again, guided. There's a set notes that they are allowed to play, but they can play those notes in any order, in any rhythm, at any time that they so choose. They can express themselves, so it's not always the band and the composer telling you what you have to do, push this button at this time. They get to open up and be a little bit creative, and the result is always a little bit different and never fails to be exciting. So thank you so much for being here tonight and for supporting the arts, and we hope that you enjoy Daniel Buckvich's three phrases from Yugoslav folk songs.